Hello again, Steve here, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the coming gold rush. And this gold rush could be an actual gold rush. It could be a metaphor also for all sorts of changes and the opportunities that lie within those changes. Because after all, if you think about it, if society, a huge segment of society, decides to change what it was doing, well, that leads a vacuum of the things that they were doing, right? And the old saying, of course, is that nature abhors a vacuum. So what happens is that activities, opportunities, situations, potential areas for service of those changes just pop up in spades. And I'll just portray a few examples. Now, these might not be accurate, but I hope you sort of get the gist of what I'm trying to say here, which is that nature abhors a vacuum, to say the old cliche in a way. So you look at the former Soviet Union, right? It collapses. There is unrest, for sure. If you can imagine back at the time when Boris Yeltsin took over, they actually had like tank shells being fired at the parliament or the Duva or whatever it was. I mean, this was very, very treacherous or dangerous times in a way for the ruling classes, right? So what do? The ruling classes, they want to protect themselves, and they have to focus on the areas of population. So all of the policing efforts, all of the military and so on, starts to look at places like Moscow and St. Petersburg and whatever, or wherever it is that you are. What happens then is that the hinterlands are basically left with no government. So if you look at what has gone on in Siberia, small areas of Siberia, over the last 20 years, you could say, is it's basically a frontier with no government. There are towns within Siberia that popped up, like rural areas that are anarchy, basically, and people live in peace, and people move there. Freedom-minded people from around the world actually moved to Russia, of all places, to get away from government, so that they could be free, so that they could start their own opportunities. They create the cottage industries and what have you, right? This same thing can happen. And this is sort of epitomizes the gold rush in a way, because what is a gold rush but people running off to the hinterlands to find their opportunities? It's like a frontier happening again, right? And people think, oh, the world is too populated to have a new frontier. Well, what was Siberia? Siberia was an area, vast area of the earth, pretty much completely unsettled. Where I live, as an example, even now, even before this whole pandemic, an hour's drive from here, there's beautiful land that you can buy for cheap that has no statutes on the book whatsoever. I looked at this one piece of land, beautiful piece of land, close to the highway. There's no building codes. There's no record whatsoever of property taxes even. And this is, I mean, probably the vast majority of so-called Canada exists like this. Yeah, it might be a little bit colder and so on, but in some cases there's gold, real and proverbial, in them thar hills. So what happens, I think, to think of it, I'm not necessarily painting the picture of all of us running off into the hinterland, but the hinterland is areas where government doesn't exist. Somebody that I know, for example, when the first wave of the internet started coming along and so on, he went into computer programming, making computer games, and he became a millionaire before he was 30, and there was no regulation whatsoever, no requirements, no degrees required, whatever. Just all you had to do was learn to code computer games, and you were it. He was basically completely free of government, pretty much, other than pay your taxes, but even then, nobody knew what you were making because it was just something so new, so you didn't have to pay much, probably. So, my point being here, that whenever there's huge change, and we're talking about the Innergenie project here specifically, which is taking action. Whenever there's huge change, there's huge opportunities. And those opportunities will show themselves if we're open-minded. And we're not thinking so much in what was, but what's coming. We have to be aware of what it is that people are talking about, what's going on. And certainly, I mean, coming back to the idea of a gold rush, well, I can't remember when there was a last gold rush, and gold has been vilified but yet it was a form of money for thousands of years. So chances are it's going to come back and you can't buy it now. Go try to buy gold. Go try to buy silver. Not available. So once again, nature hoards a vacuum. There's no gold. Well, there's gold in them dar hills and somebody's going to go mine it. And once again, you take big cities, civil unrest, nobody's working, depression, recession, whatever it is. Where does the government have to put its resources to tamp down insurrections and problems and civil strife and what have you? It's in the populated areas. And that means many people of means are going to leave those areas. They could well go to the Siberias of the world. And there, wherever people start showing up in trickles at first and then more and more, there's huge amounts of service. And if we think with a service mentality, how can we serve our customer? If we think of our employer or whoever it is that we're doing, how can we serve them? If we think of it like that, then we can focus on listening to what they say that they want. And we can find out ways that we can carve out our niches to become service people in a way, whether that's a product or a service. Providing a product is a service after all. It's all service, right? How can we be of service to them first? And then the compensation second. Livelihood, right? It's very important. It's very important to talk about these things in these days when so many people's former livelihoods are under a lot of stress and could get a whole lot worse. So think about that. Think of it in terms of a coming gold rush of some sort for you and your loved ones. And there could be a whole new world of fabulous horizons with that in mind. Steve here again, great chatting. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share. Share this out to your friends, anybody who's going under some kind of strife, who wants a positive message. So I hope to put these up as often as I can, and I would really appreciate that. And certainly make your comments in the boxes below. I'm really impressed with 11 subscribers on this channel as of this date, and already comments every day. It's a fantastic group of people we're gathering here. Talk again soon. Bye for now.